Hi everybody. Today's video, the purpose of it is The Road to Resilience, the Billy Keenan story, the why and how. So why did I write the book? When I was first injured, there was never any grand plan like, all right, I'm going to teach, I'm going to become a motivational speaker, and then I'm going to become an author. There was never that grand plan. All there was survival from one day to the next. And very often in the early days of the injury, it was 1 hour to the next, sometimes 1 minute to the next. And I could be good one day and then spend the next day in just a fit of tears in a darkened room. That's how hard it was. But it went incremental for me. So the first big task was to regain independent breathing. And 4 months post injury, against all medical predictions, I was breathing independently. I weaned myself off of the trach and the vent, and that was huge, a massive accomplishment. And at that point, I started thinking to myself, all right, teaching is going to definitely be a reality. And 2 years post injury, I rolled back into the classroom. Now, that was not an easy thing to do because I was doing so under this terrible cloud of fear and terror and abuse, but I still did it anyway. 2 years post injury, I'm teaching, and then almost a year and a half into my teaching life, God had other plans. I was filled with a severe urinary tract infection that turned into full-blown sepsis. I had to retire, and I spent 3 months in my recliner looking for answers, giving that like terrible, why God, why me? Is this not enough? And I got a bit of inspiration. I thought to myself, I've got this story to tell, and I'll be damned if I can keep it to myself. And so I started going out, and my good friends at North Rockland High School gave me a venue, 20 kids in a history class, and I started telling my story. Well, a year into that, I started adding PowerPoint, and I got more and more invites to come out and speak. And inevitably, what ended up happening is that, like a snowball rolling downhill, my speaking life gained more and more momentum. And about 2 years before the pandemic, almost everywhere I went, people were saying, Billy, you've got to write a book. You're sitting on this incredible story that the world needs to hear. And, I was never able to step outside myself and say, wow, this really is an incredible story. But if I did, let's say like I put all false modesty aside and I thought just to myself, all right, there's a guy named Billy Keenan. He was a lieutenant and Army paratrooper. He played 5 musical instruments and led a band. He did triathlons for 13 years. He was a dad. He was a surfer. He did all these incredible things, traveled to foreign countries, and served his nation with distinction. And then he suffered this terrible spinal cord injury. And not just the injury, but unthinkable abuse and theft. And he still came out of it alive and still wanted to share. If I stepped outside myself, I would think, oh my God, maybe there is a story here. But of course, I had no way to bring it to life. So somebody close to me got me a micro cassette recorder, and I sat in my room in the summer of 2018. I started to talk my story, but it languished. I was going through this brutal 3-year divorce, and so the book just lay there. And then, out of nowhere, my brother Jim did me one of the greatest services that anybody has ever done me in this 10-year journey. He got me the software called Dragon. Now, I have to tell you, and back things up a little bit, Dragon software was this voice-to-text program that I trained with extensively during the 5 months that I was inpatient at Helen Hayes. And basically what it does is it divides the computer screen into quadrants called mouse grids. And you pick the number that you want to operate in, and you keep narrowing it down, and then you can do what's called the mouse click, which is the same as if my fingers were on the mouse, I'd be clicking to execute the command that I wanted to do. So again, I had trained extensively on it and was really quite good at it. And then I came home and nothing was provided for me. And this is one of the signs that I was terribly abused. Right after Helen Hayes, I was sent to Achieve Nursing Home in Liberty, New York. I was an expert at Dragon, but I was given no laptop, no Dragon, no Siri with an iPhone. I was completely cut off from the rest of the world. And when I came home, it took me years, and Jim got me that in 2018. And I finally started to sit down and tell my story. But it really wasn't until the pandemic hit that I had the time. You see, I was so busy going out and speaking that I had no time to write the story that people were begging for. But when pandemic hit, I had nothing but time. So each morning I rolled myself to the computer and started to talk. And that's how I wrote The Road to Resilience, the Billy Keenan story. That's how I did it. All right, so down to the dirty details of how I operate Dragon. So if I'm looking at a Google Doc, so let's say I'd say mouse grid, and the mouse grids would pop up in front of me. And let's say I would say 1, 7, mouse click. And here I am now in front of my Google Doc, and I'm beginning to write The Road to Resilience, the Billy Keenan story. The way it would literally have to go is this. On Saturday, September 14th, comma space bar, 2013, comma space bar, I traveled to Seagirt, comma space bar, New Jersey, comma space bar, to perform at the New Jersey Shore Irish Festival, period space bar. The only thing that could make this perfect day any better was to go out and surf for a few hours, period space bar. I paddled out at 12:30 p.m. and 2 hours later, I was on the ocean floor fighting for my life, period space bar. So that's how difficult and tedious my writing was. And so I set a couple of goals. My main goal was I followed this guy, Jocko Willink. He was the SEAL Team 3 commander at the Battle of Ramadi, best-selling author, podcaster, just an incredible stud of a man. And when he writes a book, he sits down, his goal is 1,000 words a day. So my pandemic goal was 1,000 words a day. And I have to tell you, there were days where I could just barely get 500 words. You know, I'd get sucked back into PTSD and some of the really dark parts of my story. And then there were other parts. I was flying, man. I would get 2,500 words and barely be able to stop myself and eat for the afternoon. I was so obsessed in getting this story out. And so that's like, the kind of down and dirty details of how I wrote it. But then basically self-editing along the way, commas and space bars and open quotes. And so yeah, that's how I did it. And but before too long, I had thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of words, and really no idea what to do with the rest of the story. And then really amazing people stepped in to help with editing and shaping it and turning it into The Road to Resilience, the Billy Keenan story. It took me about a year. And after that year, I stopped, took a deep breath, and looked at what I had done. I had dictated 90,000 words. It started with nothing, just a dream, a thought, and encouragement from people who had heard me speak and been truly affected by my message. And I really started thinking to myself during the pandemic, wow, I could feel my body starting to slip. I could feel the atrophy begin to set in. And there was a couple of moments there that I really began to feel fear. Like, is this how it ends? Am I in the slippery slope? And that made it even all the more urgent to get this message out. Because I looked at The Road to Resilience, the Billy Keenan story, as kind of a lasting legacy, a proof of a life. And I think that it will be here long, long after I'm gone. And I want people to constantly refer to it. I look at it as a book that, you don't even have to read the whole thing. You can almost go to any chapter and correspond that to a difficult part of your own life. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's parenthood. Maybe it's marriage. Maybe it's career. I think I've included all the things of my life, the good, the bad, the victories and defeats, and it's all in there. And I want it to be accessible. And like I said, it will be my gift to the world long after I'm gone. And, I am 57 years old right now. And the bottom line, the truth of my existence. And this is a little bit difficult for me to talk about, but I kind of want to hit it head on because, you know, I feel pretty good today. My shoulder's bothering me a little bit and things are declining, but I just want to talk rationally and without going too deep down the rabbit hole about what's going on. I did a little bit of research recently about life expectancy for quadriplegics. And here's what the research says. So I have a very high, severe cervical spine injury. My injury is at the level of C4. And so I'm paralyzed basically from the shoulders down. And the research says this: if you survive 1 year post injury, and that's a big if. You know, my first year post injury, oh my God, I got whacked with just about everything: seizures, heart stoppages, urinary tract infections, pneumonia. I mean, I got whacked, but I survived it all. So if you're 40 years old at the time of your injury, your life expectancy is 60 years. So I was 46 at the time of my injury, and now I'm 57. And so everything I do now is with this like increased, heightened sense of urgency. Because, I mean, let's face it, you know, every one of us, nobody knows the will of God when we're going to be called back. All I know is that my life is a very finite thing, and my conditions are such that I'm not going to get better. And so I'm basically left just trying to survive, stay pain-free as much as I can, and deal with the trials and tribulations and the pain that I'm faced with. And that's why the book was such a sense of urgency. And now here it is. I finished The Road to Resilience, the Billy Keenan story, sent it off. It was being edited and going through that whole process. And I needed a mission. I'm an old soldier, and I desperately needed a new mission. So I went into a little bit of a funk. I was sitting in front of my computer and had nothing to do. And my brother Jim, God bless him, retired cop, gave me a good old sense of tough love. Hey, Billy, get your head out of your ass and do something creative. Write about what you know. So I looked at my life and I said, all right, I could write about my music, I could write about triathlon, or I could write about surfing. And so I picked one of those three, and I created a character, and I began to talk, and I told the story. And that really became the subject of my second book. It's young adult fiction. I'm not going to talk about too much because it's very, very exciting, and it does deal with one specific aspect, one part of my life, something I withdrew tremendous joy out of. And again, great sense of adventure and comradeship. And it enabled me to tell the story and to actually also incorporate the story of one of my sons deeply into and woven into the mesh of that next story. And I got to tell you, I'm 50,000 words in, and my goal is a nice tight 70,000 words. I'm looking for a 150-page book, something you could bring to the beach and read in one good beach day. Years ago, my mom gave me a copy of Tuesdays with Maury, and I brought it to the beach in Ocean City, and basically in between times of body surfing and running around the ocean with the kids, I was able to finish that book. And that's what I want this next book to be for you. And yeah, I'm very, very excited about it. And I've got a goal of getting it published as soon as possible. And yeah, so I never thought that I'd become a teacher again, a motivational speaker. And God knows, I never thought that I would have anything really interesting to give to the world. But people demanded it. They wanted my story. And with love in my heart, I gave it to them. And now God has given me the grace of finding words. And I've got the second book getting ready to go. I am more than 2/3 of the way there, and I just can't wait to bring it to you. And so that's kind of where I'm at. And yeah, and just back to the idea of life expectancy. So, and I think this is the message that I can generalize to you. So I know that I'm in the last phase of my life. Like I'm not gonna bullshit myself about it. This is where I'm at. And there's a million different things right now that are going wrong, and a million different things that are causing me tremendous pain. And but in the words of Mark Wahlberg, I'm all prayed up. I say my rosary every day at 4 p.m. And I try to offer up my sufferings to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And I also have acknowledged the times and the places where I failed, where I've sinned, that have kind of put me into this unenviable position. And, so that's where I'm at. And as much as I'm readying myself and preparing my soul for the next life and for whatever's to come when I meet him face to face, at the same time, I love this life, even with all the pain that comes with it. A big part of me doesn't want to go. Like, I wish that I felt strong enough to go out and speak like I used to, but the truth is I don't. Yesterday, somebody called and offered me a speaking program in Dutchess County sometime in the middle of June. And I actually had to say these painful words. I said, let me talk to you in about a month and we'll talk about where I'm at physically. And, hopefully I feel good enough to commit to doing it. But the truth is, I just don't know. And that was a tough thing for me to say because, most of you who are able-bodied and feeling good, you can say, oh yeah, 6 months from now, I'm going to go to the Jersey Shore. I'm going to do this or that. And I couldn't even commit to something that's 3 months out, And right now, the biggest thing that I'm hoping for is to make it to my son Kieran's graduation. That's the big thing. Stay alive and get to commencement in May. So I guess I want to talk to you and just kind of try to cut to the heart of the matter. Friends, live your life with a sense of urgency. Live every day as though it could be your last. And you know what? Also, and I've talked about this at great length, but I really want to drive this point home. If you are unhappy or you feel abused or treated cruelly, you've got to be the one to break the cycle. Get help, get into therapy, because these years, these moments are so precious. And you know what? God taught me in this injury at 46 that, I really needed to make a change. And I was kicking the can down the road. And I always thought, I have time. And the truth is, I didn't. At 46, I got injured, and now I'm 57, and the sands are rolling through the hourglass of my life. And I'm just trying to dot the I's and cross the T's and do all the things that I've got to do before it's my time. And that's it, I guess, folks. And I know I've covered a bunch of different topics. I've been kind of all over the place. And I hope we can make some sense of all this during the edit process. So right now I'm going to go ahead and cut. And that's it for now. God bless. And, keep me in your prayers, whether I'm here or not. And because God knows I'm going to need it. I really need it right now. And we'll continue to do so. And pray for me and let me know if I can pray for you.